Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchUp. We've got another review for you today, this time of EGGLIA Rebirth, and this was written for us by a good friend of the channel, Dave Morrish. Thank you very much to you, Dave. Now I'll be honest, I haven't read Dave's review yet at the time of making this intro, but I've known Dave for a very long time, and I know this review is going to be absolutely chock full of egg puns, I guarantee it. So much so that I'm going to put an egg pun counter in the bottom corner, and we'll see just how many are in there. EGGLIA Rebirth is a port of a mobile game which has now been brought to the Nintendo Switch. Taking place in the magical kingdom of EGGLIA, a land that, whilst under threat, was sealed away inside a magical egg to keep it safe. Your character is here to save the day by battling monsters, collecting resources and doing a spot of town building. So is this a game to get excited about, or is it an extremely exhausting experience? There's 4 off the bat. Well, thank you to the publishing team for the review code, and now let's find out. The main gameplay is split into 2 sections. One of them is the hub area with the town building, and the other plays like a grid-based RPG. You will open up new areas to explore by retrieving a magical egg, which you then place on the map screen. You have the freedom to place it where you want, and depending on where you do place it, you can unlock secret areas when placed next to certain terrain, similar to the placement of artifacts in Legend of Mana, which is perhaps unsurprising when you consider that 2 of the artists from the Mana series, Shinichi Kamioka and Koji Suda, were also involved in this project. This leads to some experimentation in terms of placement of these magical items, and once you have selected your level, you are placed onto the battlefield. In terms of mechanics, things are quite simple, which makes sense with it having been a mobile game originally. You move by rolling a dice, and the number you roll determines how many spaces you can move along the hexagonal grid. Along the way you will encounter enemies, trees and chests blocking your way. If you land next to an obstacle, you can then select it to launch an attack. When it comes to trees and chests, you simply one-shot them and gain the resources, but with monsters you initiate a battle. Once you have landed adjacent to these, you can then choose to highlight that enemy and your attack will launch, and a higher number on your dice can increase your attack. The enemy will move after your go and attack you back if they are adjacent to you, and you will begin each turn with a roll of the die even if you are already next to the enemy, which gives you the option to retreat if you feel you are going to lose. Bypassing enemies completely is also sometimes an option. You are given a limited number of dice rolls to complete the map, which you do by simply reaching the exit at the end. Killing enemies will gain you XP and you will level up to increase your HP attack and defense, your usual RPG stuff. On top of this, you have spirits that you can bring with you. You can gain these in the hub area and they have elemental attacks that they can use. These can be particularly effective against some enemies or not, of course, against others. As well as attacking, some of these can also heal you, but whichever move you do use of theirs costs mana, which is displayed at the bottom of the screen. The wheel depicting your mana fills up by 1 at the end of each go. The way the game is structured does lend itself to a fair bit of strategy, whether it is worth attacking an enemy, going out of your way for a chest, if you have enough turns left, etc. But I have to be honest and say that having the roll of a dice be the main feature of the game made it feel a little more tedious and frustrating than it needed to be at times. Whilst an interesting mechanic and enjoyable for the most part, I did find the over-reliance on luck that such a mechanic can bring harms the gameplay. Sometimes I would have been outmatched by an enemy and needed to get away, but then I would roll a 1 and that's it, game over. Granted, the maps don't take long to play through again, but there is a certain amount of grinding to be done in games like this, and to have my progress halted for a bit over something based purely on luck, rather than my strategy being misjudged, wasn't to my personal taste in a game such as this. An area will have multiple levels to get through, and once beaten you can take on an extra stage within already beaten levels, which helps with the grinding, and these can even include boss battles. You can also access the field before you battle to see what items are attainable, and there are also some extra missions within that level, such as chopping down every tree or finishing in less than 10 turns. These will net you extra rewards. On the other side of the gameplay comes the town building itself. This is the main hub world where you can move around freely with the analog stick, holding ZR to run. Here you will encounter plenty of friends who move in constantly and demand things from you, thus creating the game's side quests. You get to name the town yourself, and the quests mostly require you to bring the townsfolk material to help them create or expand buildings, and you even get to decorate your own home. I know plenty of people that enjoy these type of elements in games, and there is certainly plenty to do here in this respect. You can plant seeds and gain more items this way, but strangely they are all on a timer which counts down in real time. You can use an in-game item known as a tick-tock to reduce the waiting time, but this is my other main gripe with the game, in that it feels like a bit of a hangover from the game's mobile roots that perhaps shouldn't have been included here at all. To make it clear, this isn't a microtransaction, you don't have to pay any money to speed it up, but it just feels like a strange inclusion nonetheless. The controls are very simple, with mostly pressing the analog stick to move and A to select things, as well as L and R to select your sprites. I did find moving the cursor along the grid slightly finicky at times, and curiously this game does not support the touchscreen, and given the fact it was, again, a mobile game to begin with, you would expect this. Overall, I found the gameplay hits the right marks when it comes to building your town, and the strategic elements of the battling were fun. The emphasis on luck let things down a bit for me, as did a few elements that still felt a bit too mobile, but on balance, gameplay scores 12 out of 20. Controls are simple enough, but the exclusion of touchscreen controls is an odd choice, they get 14 out of 20. When it comes to the presentation of this game, I am a fan of how it looks, with the worlds having a painted feel to them. As mentioned earlier, the influence of two of the team from the Mana series is definitely felt here in terms of the art direction, and again, there is a strong Legend of Mana vibe. The character models themselves are varied, and personally, I found the characters the highlight of the game. The cutscenes play out with text boxes and pictures of the character talking next to them, but they do convey a lot of expression, and there is definitely a lot of humour here. Onto the battlefields themselves, and the grids are clearly spaced out and everything is large and easy to see. The enemies pop out even if they do match the colour of the backgrounds at times, and the game does a good job in presenting all the necessary information to you, such as health bars, enemy elements and so on. You can even activate search mode, which will let you scout ahead on the grid, and everything is clearly labelled, which can help you work out a path to take. I do feel that sometimes the grids were a bit too cluttered with all of the information given to you, but this is a minor gripe in the grand scheme of things. The locations have some nice variety to them, and certain elements about the areas, such as rocks or shells blocking a path on a grid, help to make this feel like a living, breathing world. The soundtrack has a whimsical feel to it, although I did notice the tracks having some short loops. For example, when exploring your town, it starts with a quieter tone, as if the day is just beginning, before stepping it up and becoming even more grand, only to then go straight back into that slower build-up. It feels quite jarring when this happens, which is a shame because the music itself is actually quite pleasant. The sound effects have that old school Super Nintendo feel to them, making it feel nostalgic for that era of games, which does complement the art style nicely. Overall, the presentation is a high point of the game. The art style is charming with likeable characters and interesting environments, and visuals get 16 out of 20. Despite the short loops, the music tracks themselves are fun to listen to and complement the game well. Audio scores 15 out of 20. EGGLIA Rebirth costs £16.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. Considering this is a mobile port, a mobile game I believe was free to play as well, this may seem a bit expensive, but I see on the Play Store that the mobile game does contain in-app purchases, and despite the tropes of mobile games I mentioned earlier of having certain things be timed, as I said, this Switch version does not contain microtransactions that can plague these types of games. This Rebirth edition does have some new features included. There are some new missions and events, new characters, added facial expressions, and an updated UI. There is plenty to see and do, not just in the variety of the stages, but when it comes to the town building, it does become quite expansive. There are over 100 sprites to gain, 81 residents, a plethora of side quests to help them with, and the incentive to do so to build up your friendship meters with all of them. If you find this sort of gameplay appealing, then there is good value to be had here, and it will keep you occupied for a long time, although the problems I had with the game that I mentioned earlier did mean that it started to drag for me over time, and on balance I would give value 14 out of 20. To conclude, EGGLIA Rebirth is an interesting game that has a good presentation and plenty to do. The two different sides of the gameplay presents an interesting angle, and they do complement each other well, to be fair. From a personal perspective, I didn't appreciate the over-reliance on luck, but there is a lot else to like, and I know people who do enjoy town building in games and the grinding that comes with it will definitely feel at home here. As long as you feel comfortable with the two sides of the gameplay, then it would be a worthwhile pickup for you to crack on with. EGGLIA Rebirth gets a SwitchUp score of 71%. Thank you everybody for watching this review. I hope you did enjoy it. Please remember to leave a like if you did. A big thank you to Dave for writing this one for us. I am going to apologise on his behalf for the ridiculous amount of egg puns, but there you go. In all seriousness though, please do check out his channel, SaveDecks Gaming. There will be a link to it in the top pinned comment. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.